Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. If you haven't gotten a chance to watch my introduction video, my name is Sabrina Crawford and I have been reviewing various YA novels that I think would be helpful for you as an English teacher to have in your classroom, whether you decide to take one of the books that I've reviewed and teach them in common with all of your students reading the same one, or you use a book for literature circles, or even if you just have it in your classroom library. It appears I'm taking a break from my original intent for this blog and purpose, but I'm going to be reviewing a resource today that I think would be super helpful for you as an English teacher to have in your classroom, especially when it comes to reading poetry and writing poetry, and that is A Kick in the Head by Janeczko and illustrator Chris Raschka. And this book is a very basic introduction to the various poetic forms. They include 21 poetic forms, and they will provide a brief overview of some of the rules and kind of reminders to have whenever you are reading a poem or starting to write your own, and they provide an example. So I'm going to show you one of the examples that they use and just kind of show you the layout of the book, and then I'm going to explain why I like it and how I think it could be used in your classroom. So first, this poetic form is haikus. So the illustrator provides really helpful reminders just of the structure and some basic rules of the poetic forms. So this one is a haiku. The haiku, this picture reminder, they are flowers, mostly because haikus are generally in relation to nature. And so in the first line, there are 5 flowers. This shows that there should be 5 syllables in the first line of your poem. The second one is 7 flowers. The third line is 5 flowers again, because haikus are generally, they follow the pattern of 5, 7, 5. There's 3 lines, and again, generally about nature. So in every single page, there is this little reminder up in the corner that the illustrator provided just to kind of give a reminder. This would especially be helpful for students who are more of a visual learner, or they like the idea of maps, or they just need that representation. Then at the bottom, this is super hard to see over a camera, but I'm going to read it to you. This is where the author provides a very short and concise summary of the poem. So for haikus, he wrote, "A haiku contains 3 unrhymed lines and usually includes 17 syllables, arranged in lines of 5, 7, 5. Haikus generally describe scenes in nature." So that's your very brief overview. I mean, super simple, not hard to really understand. And then they provide an example of this form. So I'll read the example. It's called Spring Rain. "In the rains of spring, an umbrella and a raincoat pass by conversing." So there's your overview. And then awesome picture of the umbrella and the raincoat. And they're conversing. All right, so there's a brief overview to the structure of the book along with the poem. The reason why I really like this, there are a few, well, first I'll tell you why I bought this book, because I didn't necessarily buy this book thinking, ooh, I can't wait to have this in my classroom. This is going to help my students so much. I actually bought it for myself. Even though I am aspiring and studying to become an English teacher, poetry has kind of always been a little bit intimidating for me. I guess I never felt comfortable because I didn't have a very good knowledge and understanding of the different poetic forms. And that honestly, I guess, just scared me for writing my own. And even though I'm a firm believer that all students and adults for that matter can become and learn how to be a great writer just by writing frequently and reading a bunch of different works that kind of line up with the writing that you are seeking and studying in greater detail, I just did not do this for myself. I don't really know why. And as an English teacher, I know I'm going to have to teach poetry. I know I'm going to have a lot of students who love poetry, and I think it's excellent to teach in order to show students about different rhyme patterns and or not just rhyme patterns, but even just strong word choice and literary elements and figurative language. So I knew that I needed something to help me as a teacher have a better understanding and maybe just enjoy it a little bit more. Because I think that's why a lot of teachers don't like poetry. They're mostly just like afraid that they don't know how to do it well. And so I chose this book because I'm more of a visual learner. I like seeing diagrams, and I also am a current preschool teacher, so picture books always a plus. And I had it in mind that when I would get this book, I would be introduced to this poetic form. I would have a very brief understanding, and then I would go out and go into the wonderful realm of Google or even my local library and find more forms that match what I am studying and what I just got the brief overview of. So I started doing this on my own, and after doing that for a couple of different poetic forms, I realized this book would be an excellent way to introduce mini lessons in your classroom. So just something very brief at the beginning of class. That's all mini lessons are, maybe 5 to 10 minutes. And you could show your students a poetic form if you're doing this in your poetry unit, or if you just want to help them learn just different structures of poems, or if you find one of these poems that has very strong language and you just want to introduce that to your students, you could introduce them to your students using this book, showing them, the brief summary, reading them the example, and then even that picture in the corner. And then you could have them go out and try to write their own or read different poems using those structures, and just to do some more research, and then have them bring in the poems that they found and maybe the poems that they really like, and then they can kind of lead the mini lesson the next day, or even later on in the day if you have access to computers in your classroom. They could go online and search it and figure out one that they like, why they like it, how it shows the form, or maybe how is it different from the form, because a lot of the poems in here, the author will talk about how it varies slightly from the original structure and rules of it. So that was why I decided I really wanted to do a video, because even though I was doing this study for myself, I just realized it could be really beneficial for teachers to use as mini lessons, and maybe to help students have a better grasp of poetic forms. Something else I want to note just about the book itself, in the back, there is a greater overview, just a little bit lengthier, of the poetic forms if you just need something a little bit more. Still written in super approachable language for students if this is their first time encountering this poetic form. But honestly, they probably read poems using these different forms, but maybe just didn't know the names of them or why it was structured the way it was structured. So some of the examples that they include are riddle poems, odes, acrostic, concrete, poem of address, ballad, list poems, quatrains, and couplets, etc. And again, they have that overview. I love the pictures in this book. I can remember just those different helpful reminders in the corner. And honestly, the poems are just a little, like, they're engaging. And I think that they're still pretty relevant. I didn't read one where I'm like, no one's going to understand that reference. So I think it's pretty up to date. And I just highly recommend it. I hope to use it in my classroom in the future. And if I don't necessarily use it to teach mini lessons, even though I think it'd be, again, a great introduction to the forms, I would definitely have it in the classroom for students to have access to whenever they're writing their own poetry, because maybe they want to try a different form that they haven't, or they want to review something again. I think it could serve as either a great introduction or helpful reminders as you continue to study poetry and teach it in your classroom. And I just wanted to share because I thought it was super helpful for me as a teacher. So I definitely think it can be taught in any grade level, and I hope that you guys all check it out. It's, another helpful thing, it's super inexpensive. I think I got the paperback for $8. I think that that's awesome for everything it has. And it has, it's 62 pages long. It has a ton of content, and I couldn't imagine paying a better price for it. So definitely check it out. I hope that you enjoy it. Hopefully next week I'll go back to my YA novel reviews, but for now, I think that's a good link. I'll provide an Amazon link at the bottom of my YouTube video just in case you want to check it out further or if I didn't explain something super well. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.